Breaking news from around your world on this Monday, January 28, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. U.S. and Taliban negotiators have agreed on a draft framework for a peace deal seeking to put an end to the 17-year conflict in Afghanistan. That's according to Washington's top negotiator. U.S. negotiators held 6 days of talks with the Taliban in Qatar last week. Zalmay Khalilzad, the U.S. Special Representative for Afghanistan Reconciliation, was in Kabul to brief the Afghan government about the talks. "We have a draft of the framework that has to be fleshed out before it becomes an agreement," he told the New York Times, adding that as part of the proposed deal, the Taliban would vow to prevent Afghanistan from being used as a hub for terrorism. The Trump administration's strategy has been to put pressure on the Taliban to negotiate with the Afghan government. It is exploring a full withdrawal of U.S. troops in return for a ceasefire and a commitment by the Taliban to direct talks with the Afghan government. The Taliban say they will only begin negotiations with the government once a firm date for troop withdrawal has been agreed to. The Taliban ruled the country from 1996 through 2001 and remains a top insurgent force. Their rule ended when the U.S. invaded Afghanistan after al-Qaeda, which used the country as a base, carried out the 9/11 attacks in the United States. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said his goal is to normalize relations with North Korea during his annual speech at the opening of Parliament on Monday. In his address covering broad political and economic issues before Tokyo lawmakers, Abe told parliamentarians, "I will act with determination and not miss the opportunity to break the shell of mutual distrust to resolve the North Korean nuclear and missile, as well as the all-important issue of abduction of Japanese citizens, by meeting directly with Kim Jong-un." The Japanese leader added he will settle the unfortunate past with the North and that his government will closely cooperate with the international community, including the United States and South Korea, to normalize diplomatic relations with Pyongyang. Abe's administration has taken a hardline approach to North Korea, despite the move toward engagement in the South and by the Trump administration. Last year, the Prime Minister had described North Korea's nuclear and missile development as a serious and imminent threat. On Monday, Abe indicated a change in the direction of North Korea policy, a sign he may be seeking to make amends and not lag behind neighboring countries in diplomacy. Brazilian firefighters on Monday carefully moved over treacherous mud, sometimes walking, sometimes crawling, in search of survivors or bodies 4 days after a mining dam collapsed, killing scores of people, burying mine buildings and surrounding neighborhoods with iron ore waste. The confirmed death toll rose to 60, with 292 people still missing, according to the local fire department. The slow speed of search efforts was due to the treacherous sea of reddish-brown mud that surged out when the mine dam breached Friday afternoon. It is up to 24 feet deep in some places, and to avoid the danger of sinking and drowning, searchers had to carefully walk around the edges or slowly crawl out onto the muck. Beginning early Monday morning, rescue teams worked on areas where many bodies are expected to be found: the site of a bus and the Valley cafeteria, where many workers were eating lunch when the dam gave way. In an ominous sign, nobody was recovered alive Sunday, a stark contrast from the first 2 days of the disaster, when helicopters were whisking survivors from the mud. More than 100 Israeli experts equipped with specialized rescue technology joined 200 Brazilian firefighters Monday morning. Local officials expect the number of confirmed fatalities will grow exponentially in the coming days. The U.S. government shutdown that lasted for 30 days cost the American economy $3 billion, according to an analysis released Monday by the Congressional Budget Office. The overall U.S. economy lost $11 billion while the government was shut down between December 22nd and Friday. But the report said much of that money will be recovered after furloughed employees start receiving back salary. CBO Director Keith Hall said in the report, Although most of the real GDP lost during the fourth quarter of 2018 and the first quarter of 2019 will eventually be recovered, CBO estimates that about $3 billion will not be. He added that's a 0.2% drop in economic growth for the fourth quarter of 2018 and a 0.4% decline for the first quarter of 2019. The report studied the economic impact of not paying 800,000 federal workers, which gave them less money to spend on goods and services. The government shutdown also made it difficult for businesses to get loans, permits, and certifications, such as Southwest Airlines seeking certification to fly to Hawaii. The CBO report didn't factor that into this report. President Donald Trump and Congress reached a deal Friday to reopen the government until February 15th. Federal employees who were furloughed will get back pay and will be paid in the next 3 weeks. Trump still wants $5.7 billion for a southern border wall and has threatened to shut down the government again next month or call for a national emergency if Congress doesn't fund the wall. Heavy snow and powerful wind created blizzard-like conditions Monday across parts of the Midwest U.S., prompting officials to cancel roughly 1,000 flights in Chicago and close hundreds of schools in several Midwestern states. But forecasters warn the most dangerous weather is yet to come. Frigidly low temperatures that the region hasn't seen in a quarter century. Cold weather advisories are in effect across a broad swath of the central U.S. from North Dakota to Missouri and spanning into Ohio. Temperatures will be as much as 20 degrees below average in parts of the upper Great Lakes region and the upper Mississippi Valley. The National Weather Service said Wednesday is expected to be the worst. Wind chills in northern Illinois could drop to negative 55 degrees, which the National Weather Service called possibly life-threatening. Minnesota temperatures could hit 30 below with a wind chill of minus 60. Forecasters said temperatures like that cause frostbite and hypothermia issues in a matter of minutes, maybe seconds. A tornado and pounding rain smashed into parts of Cuba's capital overnight, toppling trees, bending power poles, and flinging shards of metal roofing through the air as a storm cut a path of destruction across eastern Havana. Power was cut to many areas, and Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel said Monday at least 3 people were killed and 172 were injured. One witness said that amid a fierce storm, what looked like a thick swirling cloud touched down in the central plaza of the Reparto Modelo neighborhood like a fireball, tipping a bus over. The driver escaped unharmed. The windows in a local hospital had been sucked out of their frames by the wind, leaving curtains flapping in the breeze, and all the patients had to be evacuated from the facility. In the streets around Havana, cars were crushed by fallen light posts, and vehicles were trapped in floodwaters. State media said the city had been hit by winds in excess of 60 miles per hour. Roger Stone, a longtime advisor to President Trump, declined to rule out cooperation with special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. He said, "If there's wrongdoing by other people in the campaign that I know about, which I know of none, but if there is, I would certainly testify honestly." Stone went on to tell ABC News' George Stephanopoulos on This Week, "I'd also testify honestly about any other matter, including any communication with the president. There is certainly no conspiracy with Russia." Stone was arrested in a Friday raid on charges of lying to Congress about his effort to get hold of Russia-hacked Democratic emails obtained by WikiLeaks. Stone says he's innocent. Stone associate Jerome Corsi said some of the information in the indictment is accurate. The Trump administration is closely eyeing efforts in Europe to set up an alternative money payment channel to ease doing business with Iran and avoid running afoul of sanctions the U.S. has levied on the Islamic Republic. The White House is putting the Europeans on notice, saying that if they try to do an end run around U.S. sanctions on Iran, they will be subject to stiff fines and penalties. Unfazed, the European Union is marching forward with the plan which, if implemented, could further strain transatlantic relations. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said Monday that the EU was on the verge of setting up the alternative channel to send money to Iran that would sidestep U.S. sanctions on Tehran. He said Germany had been working on it in recent months with Britain, France, and other EU partners. The EU has struggled to keep alive the Iran nuclear deal since President Trump pulled out of it last year. The bloc has already introduced measures to stop European companies from complying with the U.S. sanctions without authorization from Brussels. The U.S. joined China, France, Germany, Russia, and Britain in signing a pact with Iran in 2015 that offered to lift economic sanctions in exchange for Tehran's pledge to rein in its nuclear weapons program. A human resource executive from Trump corporate headquarters last week fired a dozen longtime employees at Trump's National Golf Club in Westchester, New York, because they were undocumented immigrants. The New York Times and the Washington Post reported that Sunday, citing interviews with the workers and their attorney. Some of the workers had won Employee of the Month awards or were trusted enough to hold on to the keys to the weekend home of Eric Trump, one of Trump's sons now leading the family real estate business. All of the immigrants were from Latin America, and they were told that the immigration documents they submitted years ago turned out to be fake. The New York Times had revealed in a report late last year that a Trump club in New Jersey had also employed undocumented immigrants, and they were also subsequently fired. And that's your update for this Monday, January 28th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.